Cassian Black gasps.
How dare!
That will be quite enough.
The portrait falls silent at once. I glance back. Professor Snape's expression was controlled, immaculate. But there is something dangerous flickering behind it. Something that, for half a heartbeat, looks like it might have been amusement. I watched his walls go up in real time. His posture straightens. His voice cools further.
We are finished here. You will record the item as inactive and move on.
All right, I said mildly. No need to defend him. He's clearly been through enough. That does it. Whatever crack existed seals shut with mortar and stone.
Continue.
And just like that, the air changes again. The warmth drains. The humour is no longer shared. I turn back to my clipboard, scribbling obediently, while Cassian Black said something about ingratitude or purity under his breath. As we move on, I glance once more at the portrait. He is glaring at me with the full weight of a man who once believed himself vital. Somewhere deep in the castle, a bell, signalling the hour was growing late. Next, a tapestry. Silk. Life-sized. A troll rendered with surprising care. Broad shoulders, heavy brow, and a posture that suggests someone once tried very hard to give him dignity. He is holding a scroll. I stop. Is he wearing spectacles?
Yes. Do not encourage him.
I consulted the placard. Grunnack of the Eastern Pass, I read. Designated cultural liaison. Proposed intermediary between the Wizarding Council and regional troll communities. The troll cleared his throat. It is a deep, thoughtful sound.
Brain chosen! Mine! Brain smart!
He adjusts the rudimentary spectacles with one thick finger.
Words! I learned many!
I look up at him. Well, I say, genuinely impressed. That's 3 more than I was expecting. Professor Snape pinches the bridge of his nose.
The initiative was discontinued after Grunnack attempted to resolve a border dispute by sitting on a negotiator.
Grunnack angry! Too many words!
I bite my lip. How did the talks ever fail? I ask.
Logistics.
They no listen. Grunnack make them.
Shame, I murmur. You've got excellent posture for diplomacy. The troll beams.
You are incorrigible.
I grin, scribbling notes. Tapestry, sentient, overqualified. Then, after a moment's consideration, I add, the diplomatic experiment failed. Structural integrity is excellent. I step back to admire the craftsmanship. You know, I say conversationally, for what it's worth, I think the problem wasn't you. Grunnack preens.
Oh?
Yes, I nod. Probably just ahead of your time. Professor Snape lets out a sound before he can stop it. Not a laugh, but something perilously close. I glance at him, eyebrow raised. He straightens at once.
We are moving on. Before you attempt to inflate something else's ego.
I smile and move to the next shelf. Behind me, the troll calls out.
Negotiate!
I'll be sure to note that, I replied. Professor Snape follows, immediately this time. Now this artifact is domestic, which feels wrong immediately. It hangs from a peg, suspended in a containment charm that hums faintly, like it desperately wants to be taken seriously. A ladle. Slightly scorched bowl. Ordinary, if you ignore the warning tag. I read aloud. Enchanted serving ladle. Temperamental. Reacts unpredictably to mockery. May fling soup. The ladle twitches. I smile despite myself. Oh, I say. I remember you. The ladle rattles again, as if proud. We used to sneak down to the kitchens late at night. Birthdays, exam weeks, any time morale requires carbohydrates. The house elves adored us, completely spoiled us. Extra treacle tart, hot soup on cold nights. They pretended not to notice when we stayed too long.
You probably caused at least one incident.
I don't look back at him, but I have the distinct impression he is pinching the bridge of his nose again. I ignore him, reaching out my hand to pet the ladle's handle. The ladle trembles but remains in place.
Kitchens.
I say. Best part of the castle, really. Warm, loud, no pressure to be impressive, just food and people who wanted you fed. I made a note on my form. The object responds positively to nostalgia. Then, without thinking much about it, I add, you strike me as someone who would have benefited from that. Silence. The ladle gives a tiny, hopeful clink. I turn, finally, and catch Professor Snape looking at me like I've just said something remarkably personal without realizing it. His expression isn't angry. What is that? Focus? Guard? But he doesn't snap.
You have a habit of romanticizing misbehavior.
Oh, I say. I wouldn't call soup romantic. Then, to my surprise, he responds.
Unauthorized access, disruption, noise after curfew, humiliation disguised as levity.
Well, I say, that sounds less like soup and more like resentment. He exhales through his nose, not quite a scoff.
Some of us did not find such antics charming.
Ah. I nod slowly, the way one does when realizing one has stepped into someone else's memory without being invited. Fair, I say. Different houses, different experiences. I smile, easy, conciliatory. For what it's worth, no one ever threw soup at me. Only towards me, with great enthusiasm. The ladle gives a pleased little jerk, sloshing faintly against its ward. And then something odd happens. Professor Snape doesn't retreat. He stayed where he was, close enough that, if this were a different context, I might think he was engaging.
And you remember it fondly.
It's not a question. I grin. Of course I do. Being cared for leaves an impression. That seemed to spark a quiet internal adjustment. Oh, He thinks we're having a moment. I glance at him again, reassessing. The tension, the proximity, the way he hasn't shut this down. Well, I think, mildly amused. He's dreadful at flirting, but at least he's committed. I finished my note. Cursed ladle, I say briskly. Temperamental, sentimental, best kept away from large crowds and bad moods. I step past him to the next shelf, feeling oddly buoyant. Behind me, he does not follow immediately, which at the time I interpret as restraint. In hindsight, well. The next item is mounted on the wall at eye level. A portrait. Oil on canvas, heavy gilt frame. A man in ceremonial robes stares out with the unmistakable confidence of someone who has never once been interrupted in his own lifetime. I read the placard. Archibald Thorne, I say aloud. High Chancellor of the Western Marches, renowned diplomat, instrumental in 3 major treaties.
Instrumental is an understatement. Without my intervention, the third accord would have collapsed entirely. I was, at the time, the most significant magical authority.
I'm going to stop you right there, I tell him. Professor Snape makes a sound behind me. Not quite a sigh, more like a pressure adjustment. I gesture vaguely at the surrounding shelves. You're currently hung between a cursed soup ladle and something that hums when I blink at it, I say. In a storage room. In the dungeons. At a school. The portrait bristles.
This is temporary. I am a man of immense historical consequence.
Of course you are, love, I say, and we'll be sure to note that. I wrote portrait, sentient, verbose. Then after a beat, add, requires no additional warding. The portrait scoffs.
I once dined with kings.
And now your inventory item 47, I say. Life's a journey. Afterlife doubly so. You should have become a ghost. Behind me, Professor Snape shifts.
Must you editorialize everything?
I glance over my shoulder. I find it helps morale, I reply. Mostly mine. The portrait harumphs again, clearly preparing for another speech. Professor Snape steps forward.
One more word, and I will turn you to face the wall.
See? Teamwork. He shoots me a look that suggests teamwork was not on the agenda. I smile, jot down the final note, and move on to the next shelf, humming softly to myself. He follows, against his better judgment, against his temperament, and, as it turns out, against his long-term interests. There, the last artifact settled. Did the room just exhale? I don't blame it. So did I. I finish the final notation, tap the parchment once to dry the ink, and glance up, already forming something mildly clever, defensibly harmless, definitely unnecessary. Professor Snape is already moving. Not hurried, not flustered. Finished. He closed his ledger, returned it to its exact place on the shelf, and gave a single nod. Very precise, punctual, final.
Your inventory is complete. The Ministry will find no discrepancies.
And that was it. He turns. Footsteps recede. The door opens. Silence. I squinted at the space he was occupying. Well, I think. That was unexpected. I wait. Nothing. No return. No clarification. No awkward professional afterthought. I check the small, tidy box labelled "Oversight Concluded" and shrug. It's not a perfect report. I smiled to myself and headed for the door. The troll tapestry catches my eye, beaming at me with what is unmistakably pride. Halfway out, I pause. Ah. Right. The 3 broomsticks. They serve a Chardonnay that could cure strep throat, revive the dead, and turn even the strangest professional encounter into an anecdote instead of a puzzle. And as is customary of my reports, inexplicably unfinished.